So for the 12-1, 12-4 review, the first thing we have is creating two histograms with an interval of 5, starting with 0 to 64. So the first thing I did was I took class A, and I created my range of values. So 60 to 64, 65 to 69, 70 to 74, so on and so forth. Then I went through and I started to do tally marks. So I found 65 was first, right here, so I put my tally mark here. And then I did 74, and I put my tally mark where that one went, and so on and so forth. I did the same thing with class B then. When I was finished with all my tally marks, I needed to see the frequency of each of these range values. So to create my histogram, I have my title at the top. I should have frequency over here. I do not. And I should have the test scores, is what it looks like. I should have the word test scores down here. So then I put my range of values on my x-axis. I put the frequency on my y-axis, always. So the 60 to 64, we saw there was 2 tally marks in for class A. So that's what I did here. Created my bar that touches the y-axis and the x-axis. And then the 65 to 69 is also 2. So the thing with the histogram is that the bars touch. All of your bars always touch when you're creating these. So I did that with both class A, and then I did that with class B. And then it says to compare the population using a measure of center and dispersion. We talked about if it was symmetric versus skewed. Both of these are pretty symmetric, unfortunately. When they are symmetric, that means you have to use mean and standard deviation. So I found the mean for both of those classes. And then I also found the standard deviation. And I did this kind of quick, so I'm pretty sure that's what the one is. So if you're not sure how I got my standard deviations, if you skim through the pages here, you will see my work right here. So you have class A's standard deviation here, class B's standard deviation here, and how we found it. Remember how I also said you can simply list out your values. So list out the values, and then that's like step 1. Step 2 then was to find the difference of the values between the number in the sequence and also the, the mean. So you would do like -2, 1, 2, whatever it is. And then step 3 was to square those. So you'd have 4, 1, 1, 4. Step 4 was to find the mean of those. And then step 5 was to square root that. So if you want to list it out like this as opposed to the big old chart, you can do either way, and that's fine. So then after I found my standard deviation and I found my mean, I went back and I compared them. And I said that the mean grades were about the same. They were 1/10 off, but class A had a greater variation in scores than class B. Okay, so that's comparing them. All right. So the next one then was looking at the double line plot, or double box and whisker plot. So it says to compare the populations using a measure of center and dispersion, and we see that this one here is actually skewed left. The first one is actually pretty symmetric, but the second box and whisker plot is skewed left. So we have to use your median and IQR, and we found them right here and here. So then when I compare them, I say, while 8th grade has a greater median height, their variation in heights is the same. So you need to write a statement or 2 statements, one talking about your measure of center, one talking about your measure of dispersion. The next piece that we had was creating a box and whisker plot. So remember, we need our 5-number summary for that, which would be your median, your first quartile, third quartile, and your range values. So that's your 5-piece summary. And then we find those, so we list them in order. We get our median value of 87 because our median is found right here. Our first quartile value we get in here of 81.5, so it's the median of that. Third quartile value we get in here, it's the median, so 93. And range values are the highest value and the lowest value. So the median and the quartiles, these pieces are our boxes. So here's my median value, my upper quartile value, my lower quartile value. So I make the box out of those. My range values are my whiskers. So this one here said to create a box and whisker plot. Then it said to find the mean, median, and mode. That's another piece of your quiz that is not necessarily on this review. That's why I put it in with this problem. To finding your mean, we did, your mean is, let me see, 85.75 right here. Your mode is 87. That's the one that occurs most often. And then we found that the median was 87 as well. So then on your paper, it says to describe how the data is distributed. Well, the data is skewed left. When you're looking at distribution of data, you're looking to see if data is symmetric or if data is skewed. And in this one, it's skewed left because of this outlier down here. So that is comparing populations using a measure of center and dispersion. That's creating a box and whisker plot. That's also finding mean, median, and mode. The last piece of your 12-1, 12-4 quiz is going to be looking at samples and populations and deciding, is this survey valid? Is it biased? Is my sample biased or unbiased? And also drawing a conclusion based on that. So for this one, the population is the fans. The sample was the 50 fans with the season tickets for the Dolphins. And this is not going to be a reasonable sample because the Dolphin fans are more likely to say Dolphins, and you must also survey the Cowboy fans. So that is going to be part of your quiz. You'll also have to say, is this sample biased or unbiased? And for a sample to be unbiased, the sample has to be large enough. These are the two components. So large enough and random. If your sample is not large enough, or if it is not random, or if it's neither of those two, then it is a biased sample.